Today on The Report, we'll discuss Donald Trump's recent announcement about what he thinks is a possible link to autism.
Governor Newsom's facing backlash from Homeland Security over the state's new mask ban.
Jimmy Kimmel returning to late night after ABC suspension.
And we look into San Francisco's hall's rising popularity for photo shoots. The Report starts now.
Welcome back to another semester of The Report. I'm Chrissy Washington.
I'm Joseph Fausto.
I'm Sergio Gonzalez.
And I'm Ty Nguyen. Stay in the loop and get updated on campus news by following us on Titan TV's Instagram page, Titan TV CSUF.
This past Monday, President Trump made a claim that links the usage of Tylenol while pregnant to autism. After stating that the active ingredient in Tylenol, acetaminophen, is the cause, Trump advises pregnant women to, quote, tough it out, end quote, and that it should only be taken sparingly. Regarding Trump's claim, the FDA states, quote, a casual relationship has not been established, end quote. Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. both also claim that vaccines are at least partly to blame for rising autism rates. Yet again, there is no evidence to support this theory either. I think it's interesting. I think we take Tylenol every day. I took Tylenol yesterday, and now every time I look at the bottle, I feel kind of weird because it's just kind of like an inside joke. This isn't the first time that the president has done this. We all remember during COVID when he told us that maybe disinfectant and bleach could be something that we could inject to kill COVID, and ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And I think that we kind of keep falling into these patterns of dealing with medical advice and having to debunk things and having to prove things wrong. And I just think that it's really irresponsible.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add on to that. I agree. I think you worded pretty much everything perfectly and basically captured what I was thinking as well. But I agree. I think it's quite interesting how many claims have been made over and over again that are completely false and can be debunked and completely proven wrong. Yet time and time again, they continue to resurface.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, Trump said himself that he wasn't very precise in the language of the suspect, or on the subject, excuse me, but also repeated the message multiple times. Right. And it really makes you think. And also, I mean, autism became a thing in 1943. Tylenol was made in 1950. So definitely an interesting point made by Trump, and I completely agree with what you guys were saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think from what I've heard, a lot of health experts always seem to always say the opposition of those claims like that, and it's interesting how it's always been a case with this for any other statements he have said. But to me, I think it's always important to sort of check the facts about what it truly alludes to before making any bold claims like that and jumping into big changes before we proceed with those things. But
This past Monday, Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new bill that would ban law enforcement from wearing mask coverings, leading the Department of Homeland Security to later state that they will not comply with the new law. The law was implemented towards federal agents wearing face coverings during ICE raids that have been taking place across Southern California. DHS posted on X saying, quote, to be clear, we will not comply with Gavin Newsom's unconstitutional mask ban, end quote. DHS also claimed that the new ban causes ICE officers to be, quote, facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults against them, end quote. California is the first state to ever implement enforcement agents to cover their face, but the only exception is for undercover operations and medical masks. This is also quite an interesting topic as well. I believe that it is, within the rights of people, specifically freedom of speech, and within, with all the ICE raids going on that have been happening and continue to happen, I believe Governor Gavin Newsom is signing this bill into effect for the sake of having people have the chance to identify, these officers and just people within Homeland Security and just giving them a chance to have a fair fight per se. Because as we've seen in the media, in social media, TikTok, in the news and things like that, with all these ICE raids, there hasn't been a fair chance, arguably, for family members of, victims of these ICE raids, many of which often, regardless of whether they are citizens or not, are being taken unlawfully. And so that being said, I think by not having these face coverings, again, just gives a fair fight per se for people to have a better and clear understanding of who exactly was taking their family member, as well as, complying with things like getting their badge number and things like that. But yeah.
I feel like it's definitely infuriating, just in the sense that they're refusing to obviously show face for a reason. They're refusing to show face because they know they are pretty much in the wrong as well. And I mean, they've said it like they've been facing harassment, this and that, but obviously there's a particular reason as to why.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you guys. I think it's very similar, like you mentioned body cams, or you mentioned badge numbers, excuse me. And I think that there are some similarities there. I think that we hold police to a standard in California, at least, and across the country, that, badge numbers should be visible and body cams should be worn. And there's things that are put in place to protect them as well as us as citizens. And I think that when ICE agents sort of kind of stray away from that, it kind of creates a sense of unlawfulness that I think we're experiencing right now. And I just think that we as citizens deserve to know who is handling us and who is kind of carrying out these things, because, it does set a precedent. It does create an opportunity for bad actors to come into play. If ICE agents are wearing masks, anyone can wear a mask. Anyone can, forcefully, unlawfully detain someone and take anyone anywhere. And I think that that just opens up a new avenue of just things that could happen. And I think that with them being so vehemently against, the mask mandate, I think it just kind of shows their true colors and what they're really trying to do, like you said.
Yeah, no, definitely jumping off of what you said. I think it also kind of creates a line of anonymity between those who are being detained and those who are detaining. And I think that sort of with the law, banning a mask for ICE agents definitely helps sort of push away from that. For, like you said, for people to identify who is detaining them, who's moving them out. But yeah, no, it's definitely sort of it's definitely their right with body cam, badge numbers. I think with the prohibition with having masks definitely leads to more light to those who can take accountability for detaining them. But again, it goes back to who, it goes back to the freedom of right to sort of know who is responsible for these kind of things on a more smaller scale, instead of the bigger scale of how many people are doing it. And also with actors, like you said, who can always just pose as an ICE agent and just join in on it. So yeah.
This Tuesday, Jimmy Kimmel returned to ABC after nearly a week-long suspension from ABC and the FCC. Walking on stage to a multi-minute standing ovation, in an emotional monologue, Kimmel says, quote, "It was never my intention to make light of a murder," end quote, and defends his right to speak freely. But not all stations are welcoming his return. ABC affiliates owned by Sinclair and Nexstar have refused to air the show, replacing it with local news in many markets. Kimmel criticizes, quote, anti-American, end quote, pressure to silence the media, calling threatening affiliate boycotts, quote, un-American, and, quote, not legal, end quote. So Jimmy Kimmel's show seemed to be in flux just over this past week. It seemed to be in jeopardy and over the last week. And thankfully, it's now going to be up and running pretty soon. There was a lot of question about his First Amendment rights. What do you guys think about the situation and how it was particularly handled?
I think that I totally understand the FCC and ABC and the broadcasting companies. I understand that they have a duty to their shareholders. They have, there are certain things that they don't feel aligned with their values as companies, and I totally understand that. But I do think that the beauty of this country and the beauty of our First Amendment is that we are protected, by freedom of speech. And I think that it's important to allow anyone to say anything. And I think that it's a little ironic that, you know, everything surrounding Charlie Kirk and everything about his free speech, you know, everyone believes that, you know, everyone should have free speech. And I think that he is free to have his speech. And I think that silencing Jimmy Kimmel is sort of just doing the direct opposite of what they expected us to do for Charlie.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's just quite interesting that there's definitely a double standard. And to your point with the First Amendment and our right to free speech, again, like you mentioned, Charlie Kirk, loudly and proudly expressing his beliefs and opinions, definitely exercising his First Amendment right. And so that being said, I just think it's quite interesting how Jimmy Kimmel doing the same, as well as many other TV hosts and other people online, whether that be through podcasts or social media, things like that. There has just seemed to be a recurring pattern of that double standard again. And so, yeah, I just think it's a great thing that he's coming back and that he's being given that fair chance to not necessarily explain himself, but in a sense, again, he was exercising his right, and so he didn't necessarily do anything wrong, is what I believe. But yeah, I just think it's great that he's being given this chance back, and that people were willing to fight for his First Amendment rights. And there was, I know, a big influx of people that were canceling their subscriptions for things like Disney and Hulu and ESPN, or I know it's like a bundle, but yeah, and just doing that in partnership, I guess, in solidarity, or in standing alongside with him, but yeah, and showing their support.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like with what Jimmy said on his television show, there were some points that obviously I did not agree with in what he said, and like alluding to like it could be like a MAGA conservative that happened to kill, you know, Charlie Kirk. But I don't think that was worth the action to sort of take down his show for the sake of that, because again, it goes back to exercising your freedom of speech. But I like to think of it in a way that like, in a saying that like everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial to what you say, I guess. So it kind of is like a gray area about that. But ultimately, I think with Jimmy, he did exercise his freedom of speech, and that's something that he should have the right to do. And I think with what ABC did, it wasn't, you know, probably the best decision of how they approached it, but good thing that they reached a stalemate, so now he could come back to our his show. Yeah. San Francisco Hall is becoming a hotspot for quinceañera photo shoots. The building's marble staircase, balconies, and Art Deco windows are drawing teens and families across California. Many say social media inspired them to choose the location. 15-year-old Allison Garcia traveled from Stockton to take her portraits in a golden gown and tiara. She called the venue, quote-unquote, elegant and pretty. Photographers report a spike in demand since the pandemic, with some stating 6 out of 10 clients now request City Hall as their backdrop. Once known mostly for weddings and government events, the landmark is now part of a growing rite of passage for young Latinas celebrating their 15th birthday. Personally, for me, the first thing when I would think of if I were to have a quinceañera, I would imagine it to be have it at City Hall, but apparently, like the San Francisco City Hall place is very beautiful. I've seen some photos, and I kind of agree that, like, yeah, that would make sense why people would go there, because, like, normally for having quinceañera photos, you would go to, like, what, luxury mansions, beaches, botanical gardens. So I think it really, at first, it kind of like, wait, why would you want to go there? But now after seeing it, it's like, yeah, okay, now that makes sense. But I want to see what you guys think of that place, if you ever, like, you know, ever been there yourself, or you've seen photos that, you know, alludes you to, like, hey, maybe I would want to go there to see why it's, like, such a big deal. You know?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and chime in on this. Yeah, I do believe that I've been to San Francisco. I've never been to City Hall, but I've been to San Francisco, and it is quite beautiful, and there's a lot of photogenic spots. But I believe that, you know, using City Hall is definitely a very photogenic spot for a quinceañera photo shoot. And coming from a Mexican background, being Mexican myself, this is such a rite of passage, or it's a big milestone or a stepping stone in a young woman's life. And so, yeah, I think just capturing that with such a almost powerful, per se, background, something that shows strong symbolism, such as City Hall, I think is a great way to kind of capture that. And traditionally, quinceañera, girls that are celebrating, their quinceañera are wearing these big, vibrant dresses and gowns that have various patterns and colors and things like that. And so, yeah, I think it's a great place to have a photo shoot and, celebrate this special time in one's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hall, from what I've seen, looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, like massive roofs. The architecture on the wall is just something you can't find anywhere else. And I'm going to assume it's free, which is probably why they love going there. But, I mean, obviously, it's a super beautiful venue. I saw that Marilyn Monroe got married there, baseball player Joe DiMaggio, and a couple Mexican artists, and Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. So that alone, like obviously you mentioned that it is a pretty expertise like wedding venue, but the list is definitely there.
I just think it's really cool. Like you said, like a quinceañera is just such a huge part of a girl's life. And of course, in Latino culture, I think it's so important. And to that point, I think this is just a really trying time, especially for the Latino community right now. So I think it's really beautiful that they're able to go to a city hall. It's not a mansion. It's not a big, beautiful venue. Well, it is, but it's not, some commercial venue. It's city hall. It's government property. And I think it's so beautiful that they're able to go and just show their culture and be themselves and just be happy and just find some kind of like solace and some kind of like empowerment in that venue. And I just think that's really beautiful.
Nice.
And that wraps up with our recent news of today.
Make sure to stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
Don't forget to follow at Titan TV CSUF on Instagram to stay updated with our weekly episodes.
And we'll see you on the next episode of The Report.